Toxic ex-boyfriend story time. So I was a junior in high school, and I had just gotten out of a 4-year relationship with this one guy. Well, I started to see him date around, so I thought I should do the same. I started dating this new guy who was known as the biggest player. Since I just got out of a long-term relationship, we decided to take things slow. We both went to different schools. So we both had separate proms. And of course we both asked each other. So his prom came around first, so we got a shore house with his friends. And before we left, he bought me 2 dozen roses. This man has never bought me anything. And my mom was like, that's strange. I know exactly what he's trying to do with you. I now see that may have been a warning. But did I listen? No. After prom, we went to the shore house and he tried to make it happen. I said no. The next morning we both left. It was a Saturday because I had dance and he had baseball practice. He went back to the shore house that night and I didn't hear from him all weekend. Like for part 2.
Story time about how I catfished my boyfriend. I'd been dating my boyfriend Ben for around a year. We were really happy and he even moved in with me in my apartment. Everything was going great and I thought he could be the one. However, one day my friend Lacey sent me a screenshot of my boyfriend on a dating app. At first, I was hoping that maybe it was an old account. I didn't want to jump to conclusions if it was from before we started dating. The pictures that he had on the account didn't seem to be recent ones. I wanted to ask him about it and I almost did, but I had to be sure that he wasn't trying to play me. I called my friend Lacey and told her to super like him on the app. She's really pretty and they've never met, so I knew that he would match with her if he was still active on the app. After a few days, nothing happened. He hadn't matched or messaged her. I was so relieved that I even bought him a new jersey I knew he'd been wanting. I felt dumb even questioning his loyalty until I got an update from Lacey a few days later. He had matched with her on the dating app and messaged her. I was so mad I was seeing red. I was so close to going into the next room and going off on him, but I decided that I wanted to get back at him in a different way. I called Lacey and explained to her that I wanted to set him up and asked for her login information on the app, which she gave me. This is when things got interesting.
This is why you should always trust your gut. In the 1970s, a young couple decided to go for a late-night hike in the woods. A couple minutes into their walk, and the man remembers thinking something's not right. He tells his girlfriend, but they just decide to ignore it and keep going, until he steps on something that felt really soft, like it was alive. Before he has a chance to see what he stepped on, they hear all this rustling in the bushes next to them and they bolt. Years later, that couple turns on the TV and a death row inmate who's about to be executed is being interviewed. And they ask him, was there ever a time that you were almost caught red-handed? He responded, yes, one time. I was in the woods and a couple walked through and the man actually stepped on the body of a girl I had just killed. I was hiding in the bushes just a few feet away. They didn't see me. That couple had run into one of the worst serial killers of all time, Ted Bundy.
But I have a crazy story. Okay, first part of the story is I went to dinner with my boyfriend the other night and a girl tapped on my shoulder. And I look over and I'm like, hi. And this girl's like, is your name Jennifer? And I'm like, no. And she's like, do you have a twin named Jennifer? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh my gosh, you look identical to this girl named Jennifer. Like, that's totally normal. Okay, there's a doppelganger, people look like me, but they're not 4'9", blonde and loud. So I'm just like, what are the odds that someone must like have the same little like quirks as me? Today I get food from a restaurant, and I frequent there pretty often because I love sushi. And the guy was like, where do you work? And I was like, well, I used to work in the area over here. And he's like, you look just like this girl at Family Dental or something down the road on Main Street. And I was like, really? I heard that the other day that I had a doppelganger. And I was like, this lady tapped me on the shoulder and asked if my name was Jennifer. And he goes, that's her name. Really short and blonde and looks just like you. Guys, I have a twin I don't know about, and she works at a dental office. So
one time I was behind the register at Victoria's Secret. This customer walks in and immediately everybody spots her as a red flag. She's just picking up items, throwing them in her bag, not looking at sizes, not looking at colors. So everybody's like, everyone's on their walkie like, watch this customer. She's coming to the fitting room. She's headed to the cash wrap. Somebody get her. Check her ID. Get her. Get her. She has a bag full of stuff. And guess who gets her at the register? Me. So she comes to my register and she dumps out her stuff, and we're having a regular conversation. Hi, how are you? Yada, yada, yada. Her total comes up to probably between $700 to $900. It was expensive. My manager is at the register next to me, talking to me on the walkie. Ashley, make sure you get that ID. Don't matter what she using, make sure you get that ID. So I ask her for the ID because she's paying credit. Why do you need to ask for my ID? Just take it, run it. I'm like, no ma'am, I'm sorry, I need your ID for the purchase. She starts to raise her voice at me.
This one time I had to stay at my grandma's because my dad was on vacation. And I was having a huge box of clothes come in, and I was not about to have these hoes stolen, so I had my friend stop by to put them inside. So I called my friend up and I was like, hey, can you tell me when you get to my house and let me know when you put the package in? She's like, I got you, shawty. I was like, bet, girl. So around 10 minutes later, I got a call from her freaking out. She was like, Kayla, is there anybody at your house? I was like, no, my dad's on vacation and I'm at my grandma's. She said, no, Kayla, there is somebody at your house right now. So I start freaking out. I'm like, girl, what do you mean? And she said she saw someone walk across this huge window and then my dad's lights turned on. So I start freaking out. I'm like, what did you see walk across the window? Like, who did it look like? And she said it was just a black, tall figure that walked across that window. And around 5 minutes of being on the phone, freaking out, she said my dad's lights turned off again. Eventually, me and my grandma drove by the house to make sure nobody was there, and of course, nobody was in my house. And it only gets worse.
A fifth grade teacher asked her class the other day how many of them were Trump fans. And most of them not knowing what a Trump fan was, and of course wanting to be liked by their teacher, they all raised their hands. Well, all except for little Johnny. The teacher looks over at little Johnny and says, Johnny, why are you being different? And he says, well, because I'm not a Trump fan. And she says, well, why are you not a Trump fan? And he says, because I'm a Democrat. She says, really, why are you a Democrat? He says, well, my mom's a Democrat and my dad's a Democrat, so I'm a Democrat. She says, oh, really? Well, what if your mom was a moron and your dad was an idiot? What would that make you? Johnny smiles and says, a Trump fan.